Hi, I'm Duane from Fuse IT. My colleague Dominic is here as well in the back, hiding back there. I'm going to, it looks really short, but it's not. So it's good I have a timer up here. I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are, who is Fuse IT, what is our product S4S. Then I'm going to talk about our company philosophy about doing real-time integration instead of syncing. And I'll talk for a while. It seems like a small point, but I'm going to talk for a while about that and then tie it into some customer use cases from our customers. I have 3 of those. I wanted to make this is a technical conference. So I've added some slides in that are kind of techy that we wouldn't normally give. And so we're going to talk about some of our customers and really problems that we've found and bugs that we've had to fix. It's always good to see where people mess up, right? And in this case, ourselves. So I've called that our tips, tricks, and traps section. All right, this slide, I'm going to start out with this and I'll end with this slide, or I'll bring it back at the end. This is my 3 doors slide. And for me, it's the perfect analogy of doing a Salesforce integration. You have 3 ways that you can do a Salesforce integration. The black door on the left, which is you can write your own. You're a good Sitecore developer, I'll include in this if you see something on GitHub that kind of looks like it might get you started, and so you download it and you think, I can just do this myself. That's the black door. The red door on the right is the Sitecore door. That's Sitecore Connect for Salesforce. It is, has been and still is primarily a syncing tool that syncs XDB with Salesforce. I'll talk a lot about that. And the middle door, the orange door, is Fuse IT S4S. It's a full-featured product that's been on the market for 10 years. It's in use around the world and in some very demanding environments. So we're going to talk about that as we go through. I'll come back to that slide at the end. Now, we're from New Zealand. Anyone been to New Zealand? Great. 2? I thought I'd throw this up there because honestly, like I talk to people in the States and they don't have a clue. Where is New Zealand? Oh, you speak English, they say. Yes, we do. So this is New Zealand way over here off the coast of Australia, in the middle of the ocean. And I included this next slide for fun because I saw it on the internet when I was looking for this slide. And you'll see there's a problem here, right? And this is that, I don't know why, but they put New Zealand over on the other side of Australia. I guess we're an island, you can just move it around. It doesn't really matter. But I mean, this is like taking India, and putting it off the side of Africa or something. It's just like, I guess because it's an island, you can do this. And of course, this is the way the world looks to us, right? This is the center of our universe, and there we are, and we have customers all over the world, okay? People come up to us at the table, and they say, do you have an office in India? And we say, no, and there's a look of surprise, like, really, I get it. If you're an integration partner, if you're a Sitecore partner, the idea is to spread out around the world, right? And the bigger you get, the more offices you have. But that's not really who we are. We're a product company. We sell our product, and the Sitecore partners, if you will, are our offices out in the world. So, for example, Amatec up there, we've done that account for 5 years with Mindtree. So we know the Mindtree folks. These guys down here, United Health Group, it's the 15th largest company in the world, 460,000 employees. It's twice as big, that's twice as many as Apple Computer. Huge company, we do that with horizontal integration since 2013. So, that said, how many of you had heard of Fuse IT before this event? That's not bad, But the thing is, we're sort of like the plumbers behind the scenes who have this product, who do support for it, but, in some cases, the client doesn't even know we exist. The partner is out there doing really the heavy lifting of solving problems and fixing the bugs and calling us. So we also work with university systems, nonprofits, folks all around the world. And we work with the largest partners in Europe and the US. We work with Deloitte. We work with Verndale and American Eagle in the States. We do open universities with, it's Accenture. It's Avanade, though, in Australia. And so they're one of our other partners who we work with. And so just, pretty much everybody. Blue Wolf as well, we have a client with them. So we're everywhere. And that's a little bit about who we are. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about what is Salesforce, because I imagine, how many of you work with Salesforce now? Wow, not very many. So this next part will be good. So Salesforce is a cloud-based CRM that, think of it as a big database, right? And these are all objects. This is Salesforce terminology. These are objects in Salesforce, in the Salesforce universe. One you hear a lot about is contact, okay? Account, leads are an important one. So this screen shows you 10, right? More or less. Of the folks who work with Salesforce, because for your other guys, it would just be a wild guess, how many objects do you get in a Salesforce org out of the box? Who wants to take a stab at that? Doesn't have to be correct. I don't expect it to be correct. Anybody? 399, last I checked, 399 objects. And it could be 400 by now because it's changing all the time. So that's how many objects. You can think of them as, like if it was SQL, they'd be SQL tables. 399. Okay, so one point of difference between our product and Sitecore Connect is that Sitecore Connect gives you 2 objects out of the box when you install it. Contacts, and then there's another one that I believe is tasks. And it's essentially a Sitecore Connect when you install it, gives you a starter kit that you have sort of a proof of concept about getting stuff up to Salesforce. And we give you all 399 out of the box because what we do, and this, yesterday at one of the opening addresses, I think it was the horizontal integration one, we got to the bonus point. Do you remember? We got to bonus. I like that. So this is the bonus section of my talk, because if you are interested in Salesforce, you should know about this tool. It's called SFDC Explorer. We wrote it. It's free. You can download it from our website. Okay, what that tool does, I'm going to just drop out here of my presentation and show you. This is SFDC Explorer running. Again, free, download it, connect up to a Salesforce org. What this does, when you open it up, I've put in a connection string. We were worried about the internet not working with good reason, so I connected earlier and I've just left this open, okay? But I'm connected to a Salesforce org right now. And as soon as you open it, what it does is it populates this pane with all of the Salesforce objects, okay? So this is the universe of Salesforce, right, all the way down. Now, I can drill down into any one of these objects. If I want to look more at the account object and I want to learn more about it, I can then go down and I can look at, for example, all of the fields that exist in that custom object in Salesforce. So, Salesforce ID, is it deleted, etc. I can see, almost like looking in SQL tables, I can see, what is it? Is it an int? How long is it? Is it character string? What are the fields and properties around each field and each object in Salesforce? So what we do in our tool, it's some of the same tech that's in this, is we have a mapping wizard that when you're doing a form that you want to send up to Salesforce, and you open our mapping wizard, which is just a GUI that's in the Sitecore dashboard. Let me go back, and I'll show you what this looks like. I'll come back to that one. This is our wizard, right? So we've launched this out of the dashboard. And you can see right here, this field, Salesforce object, is basically, we've gone out, we've done exactly what that tool did, and we just pulled in all of the objects from Salesforce that exist in this org, because every Salesforce org is different. What customers do, I mean, customers make huge investments to work with Salesforce. Much larger, actually, than the investment they make in Sitecore. And they're very tied to Salesforce, and they have a lot of business process around what they do in Salesforce. And so you're going out to their org, and there may be custom objects that exist only in that org. So the only way you're ever going to even know about it is by querying the org and going, right, what's there, right, what that I might want to map to. And so, I don't know, we were talking to somebody in Switzerland about, they sell jewelry and watches. And, so they have custom objects that have to do with that, of course, right? No other org in the world will have those exact custom objects. So we query that, and then we allow you to pick which object you want to talk to, and then map all the fields out of that object to the fields that are on your form. So you don't have to build anything, you don't have to write anything. You make these mappings, and this is the bottom part of our wizard. We've added some bells and whistles that allow you to do other things, like this just little checkbox, push analytics. When you submit that form, we package up all the analytics, and that's an enormously complex process that I'll talk more about in one of the use cases. But we package up goals, if there's goals being met by submitting this form, whatever's on there, goal scores, page visits, and we push them up to Salesforce by ticking this box. And we do that, we used to do it with the global cookie, but we now use the identify method, and we use the alias ID. So we get you, once you've identified, we can track you across devices. So you can also map to Salesforce campaigns. This is useful for marketing automation, for emails. And you can match. I have email highlighted. It's commonly used, but you could match on like a company ID or something like that as well. That's what are you matching the record in XDB with the record, with the this particular record of a lead or contact in Salesforce. So I skipped over something. Oh, it was this. There's two pieces to our product. There's a Sitecore package that you install into Sitecore, one package. We do what's called an assisted install, which is typically an hour. We have a WebEx with you. We'll do it with Sitecore partners. We'll do it with anybody, but we'll often do it with the end customer, putting it into, starting in a UAT type environment. We install the package. It takes about an hour. You're up and running with all that functionality that you just saw. We have another package that you install on the Salesforce side that puts all of this stuff here. This is a Salesforce page. Well, you can see how much there is here about Sitecore. Well, Salesforce doesn't know anything about Sitecore. The only reason that this is there is because we have put all of this into Salesforce in a package. The package consists of custom objects. It's got code, triggers. It's a Salesforce package. And you install it, and you have all of this out of the box. So you can see we're pushing up visits out of XDB. We're pushing up goals, profile information. You can authenticate out of Salesforce into Sitecore. All of that comes out of this one package. So carrying on so that's just a little bit about Salesforce. This is a big topic. And I'm going to go through some of our thinking around why syncing is very difficult. I'll just leave it at that. It's a very challenging thing to do. I was showing you in SFDC Explorer an object, the account object. It has 64 fields, okay? The contact object also has 64 fields. How do you sync 64 fields when you have one modified date? That's the problem that I pose to you, okay? Nobody has yet explained to me how that works, okay? How Sitecore Connect handles it, how you will handle it if you write your own is really the only thing you can do. You look at the modified date and you overwrite. That's the way it works, okay? You trigger what's called in Sitecore Connect a pipeline batch, runs. If the modified date is newer, you package up the fields and you do an overwrite. And if you're going in the other direction, you take the stuff out of XDB and you overwrite what's in Salesforce. It doesn't matter if somebody just changed in Salesforce 5 seconds ago a last name. You're going to overwrite it anyway. That's why this is scary to us. It's why we try to do everything that we can in real time. Because I know when you're submitting a form or you're making an edit and you're hitting save or you're hitting submit, I know the data's changing now. And that is the only safe time to take that, package it up, and overwrite the other system. And heaven forbid if you're trying to do both at the same time, right? You have to have a single source of truth. You have to have a place that you know, this is the person's name, and it's changed, and I can overwrite it in the other system, or going in this direction. Okay? That's 1 and 2. This is a complication. The modified date changes in these records, and it changes for things that you may not foresee. For example, one of our use cases deals with this. A Salesforce admin goes in, changes the object by making a custom field. People do this all the time. This happens all the time in a Salesforce org. When that happens, if you make a custom field and you populate it, then the modified date has just changed on every object in Salesforce because you have changed that object. Okay? If you're running a pipeline batch based on those changes, you have just queued up every object in Salesforce to sync. It's a very bad idea. Yesterday, in Rob's talk, he said a quote which was, "Slow is the new down," right? If you believe that, you need to be very careful about this issue, which takes me into 4. When you're doing a sync operation, it's CPU intensive. So we see CPU usage of 100%, and we see slow is the new down. If you're doing a sync of a large number of objects, it's a scary thing to do. I've seen sites go non-responsive for 10 minutes doing the sync. And once you see that, you don't want to repeat it. So it really brings up this last question of scale. And we don't think, the customers that we're talking about have millions of objects in Salesforce. Most of the demos that you see, if you go on YouTube, there's great demos about how to talk to Salesforce. How do we sync to Salesforce? How do we set up Sitecore Connect? And if you look at those, they typically have 20 records. And somebody adds a new contact and runs a pipeline batch, and the 21st record goes up to Salesforce or goes to XDB. And okay, it works, right? Well, you're not ready to go to production yet, is what I'll say there. What we basically advise that people do is that you work with what's called a full copy sandbox. In Salesforce, that means it's an exact copy of your production org. So it has the same data that your production org has. If that's 1 million records, it's 1 million records. And you need to run these operations there. Don't do it in an environment where you have 20 records, and then you say, right, let's go to prod and see what happens. It's dangerous. So, advantages of real time, just to run through it, it's real time. It happens now. You submit the form, you get that whatever it is you're taking on the form, somebody is signed up for an event, it goes into Salesforce right then. There's a single source of truth. Don't have to be worried about overwriting one system overwriting the other. Smaller network footprint. We're not worried about syncing 50,000 things because we're really only pushing one record. These are what Sitecore visits look like in Salesforce with our package. And we have a button here called Get Latest Visits. What this does is it reaches out from Salesforce, it hits XDB, and it gets the last, it's configurable, but we usually set it to 5, either 5 or 10. Get the last 5 visits. Get the last 10. You can sit here and you can click that button all day if you want to. There's really no harm done. All analytic information originates in Sitecore. So it's a single source of truth, and it doesn't matter if I take it again and I overwrite it, and then somebody does it again and they overwrite it. I can just keep doing it. Sync operations, not so much, right? If you're running a sync operation of all of the interactions that have changed in the last 4 hours, and you have a problem halfway through running that, how do you get out of that? What's the redo for that? You don't know, what's changed in which system, and you can't just do it again. So that's our company philosophy. It's been that way from the beginning. We've done as much as possible in real time. And so when you're doing these things, you change one, it changes in the other system. I'll enter the tips, tricks, and traps section and just talk through what some of our customers have experienced with these lessons. We have a customer in the UK, they're a financial services firm, and because of GDPR, they had to send out a notification to all of their contacts and leads in Salesforce. And they had to say, look, we've got personal information of yours, name and email address. We need you to come in and say that it's okay for us to keep it. In fact, Peter talked about XDB purging yesterday as being something in 9.2, okay? That's what we're talking about. If somebody says, no, you can't have, I don't want you to keep that information, you would have to go into XDB and remove it. Okay, right now you can't do that. So this customer sent out the emails, and I'll show you a few more things about their use case. This is a Sitecore page. They have categories of financial information that you come in, so these expand. So if you go to Asia team and you expand that tree, you can pick some other preferences. When this form is submitted, it does not go into XDB. It never goes into XDB. It goes directly to Salesforce, and it sets all these preferences. There's really no reason for this stuff to be in XDB. Why would it really need to be there? And in the case of GDPR, you're just making yourself more of a problem to have to go then get rid of that information. So how did we implement this? This is Salesforce contact or lead record. We made a custom field, GUID for email preferences, and we generated a random GUID that we put across every contact and lead, about 1 million. This is the example that I was talking about earlier about changing the modified date, okay? When you do this, when you do something like this, you make a custom field and you populate it, of course you've just changed the record, right? You've just changed every record in Salesforce, every contact and lead. And so that's why I have the bomb there. That modified date changes, and if you have a sync operation or you have a pipeline batch that is sitting there waiting and checking modified date, and you have just changed every modified date in Salesforce, you've just queued up 1 million records to sync to XDB. And there's no way around it. I mean, I guess you could probably disable the pipeline batch for a period of time and not run it, would be the only workaround I can think of. And you just lose whatever was going on during that time. So anyway, real world case, they're very happy. This worked great for them. They use Pardot, this customer, and so they just used Pardot emails and included this in the link. And there were some byproducts that were great about this, is that we then, when the customer came in and clicked this, we knew exactly who they were in Salesforce because this already existed in Salesforce. We were getting that when they clicked through, and we were able to set the Sitecore visitor ID, or alias ID, so then we now know who that person is. We know who they are in XDB, and we know who they are in Salesforce, and from forevermore, we can associate those two. So this was just, really not even a big deal. We did this in about a week. They have a partner called Alpha in London that did this. But they talked to us about how to do it and how to avoid some of those problems I'm talking about. So case number two, lead objects. Huge number of lead objects. I mean, Sitecore doesn't talk about leads at all when it's talking about Sitecore Connect. Leads are actually, when you've got the sales funnel, you've got a lot of leads, and leads get winnowed down to become contacts in Salesforce. That's the way Salesforce works. And so we had a customer call us up and say, we're getting duplicate goals. The same goals coming in twice. Why is this happening? And we had to debug through it. And problem is here. Right? This is my date stamp, my time stamp, 242.37.114Z. Does anybody notice anything? This is Sitecore 8.2, so this is probably RoboMongo piece of screen you're seeing there. Does that ring a bell for anybody? Shy, you're being shy. Well, I'll show you the next screen, which also has some timestamps. Look at this timestamp. Okay? So here's the problem. We do stuff in real time. So we're pulling these goals out of the tracker. We are not pulling them out of XDB because they're not in XDB yet. If it's a live session and someone's submitting a form, we have to grab the goal out of the tracker. Well, when you pull the goal out of the tracker, it's got 4 significant digits more of time precision. And when Sitecore writes the goal out of the tracker to XDB, one of the guys this morning was talking about, he was calling it the tracker model and the XDB model, if you happen to be in that talk. And it was Alexander next door. And he said, we don't use the tracker model, we use the XDB model because we're working with XDB. And I was sitting there on the edge of my chair going, yeah, I know about the tracker model. It's a different model, right? It's a different data model, and it uses a different degree of precision for time, right? And so what happened was, for us, because we're looking at the timestamp and we're looking at the ID, they're 2 different goals. They happen at different times. So we're writing the same goal twice, and that's what was causing this problem. So what did we do? Well, we changed our code, and when we pull the goal out of the tracker, we chop off the last 4 digits, and then the goals match, and we only go and get 1 goal. It's a really simple fix, right? But it's a subtle difference. And the larger point about this is that if you decide to write your own integration between Sitecore and Salesforce, you're going to fight with this sort of thing and 100 other problems just like it, because that's just the way it is, right? Nothing ever works exactly like you know. Hashtag sound of screaming, Sitecore chopped the last 4 digits off the date timestamp when they wrote it to XDB. You know, that was us in our office. So we fixed that, and then the customer said, a different customer said, well, I've got many goals, and I'm only seeing 1 of them show up in Salesforce. Why is that happening? And of course, we were clued up at that point to the whole date idea. You can see here in blue, all of the date, these are 3 goals, right? They came off of this form, create SF contact. I put the goal IDs over there, so, you know, it just makes sense. These are the goal IDs. There's different goal scores in here, so, yep, this one's worth 10, this one's worth 15. So the problem here is that they're all the exact same time. They're all occurring at the exact same time. So for us, that looked like the same goal. So we changed our identifier, and our identifier for goals is now the interaction ID plus the goal ID plus the timestamp. It's a really long, ugly thing, right? But it works. So that's how we do this now, and everybody's happy. This is the way it looks up in Salesforce. You can see this is the same visit. It occurred at the exact same time. There's my goal scores. I've got my 3 goals, my APAC click email, and my newsletter sign up. Okay, it's very detailed stuff. Sitecore Connect doesn't do any of this. Okay, you will have to write this if you use Sitecore Connect. That's fine. You know, maybe you want to do this, but this sort of thing, parsing through interactions to put XDB analytics up into Salesforce is the kind of thing you could spend the next year working on to get it right. My last use case scenario is that of converted leads. And so what Salesforce does, going back to the funnel, there's a lot of leads in Salesforce. When some event occurs, you do what is called converting a lead. So you click this button here with the red arrow, convert. And Salesforce nicely packages up all this information and takes that object and moves it from being a lead to being a contact. So the problem if you write a pipeline batch or if you write some custom code to look at leads is that this is no longer there anymore. It is now moved. And what you get when you try to talk to that object is you get this. This lead was converted. It's now a contact. So if you've written code, right, pipeline batch is tied to an object. So a pipeline batch is going to be talking to leads. If you've written code to talk to leads, it's not there anymore. It'll probably fall over because the object, Salesforce makes it even more difficult, the object is still there as a lead, but it is made read-only. So you can no longer, I guess because they think you might want to do reporting on, we had this many converted leads and that sort of thing in Salesforce, they leave it there, but they actually take it. And so it's got the same object ID that it always had in Salesforce, but they've moved everything over. Well, the API tells you this when you talk to the Salesforce API. So all of our code is API aware. So when we try to write a lead and it's a converted lead, we then actually write it to contact. Okay? It's just subtle stuff that will trip you up and you will have to deal with if you try to write your own integration because converted leads are a big part of working with Salesforce. Here's a couple of quotes that I threw up here because we're kind of proud of these quotes. And Adam Kahn wrote Sitecore Connect, and so he said in his blog that basically this last bit, that you're making a mistake if you fail to consider S4S. And he says because a free connector is now available. That's because Sitecore Connect was free when it came out, but it is no longer free, so you can forget that last part. But the fact that we had a good relationship with Adam. He's no longer at Sitecore, but we used to talk about the Sitecore Connect, and we'd talk about our product. And we still have a monthly technical call with Sitecore where we talk about these things. And then Liz, who we don't know, we do work with Verndale, but Liz has a great blog on the community that's been split up into 4 parts where she talks about Salesforce integration. And she talks about the perils of making your own, Sitecore Connect, and S4S. It's a direct comparison between all these. And she basically says S4S isn't like having an apple orchard, in her blog. And we didn't know Liz before that, and it was just a great thing for somebody to say. And so, horizontal integration talked about doing one thing well, right? We do S4S well. We do Sitecore to Salesforce integration well. It's the thing that we want to know a lot about. Daniel, who works in our office, is a Salesforce MVP, and he's number 3 on Stack Exchange, talking about Salesforce stuff. He knows things that, you're never going to know. And so we get up in the morning, and these are quotes that we try to live up to, really. This, sets a pretty high bar for us. So I said I'd come back around to these doors. This is the door of making your own. When you go through this door, you're on your own. You're on your own to build it, and you're on your own to figure out the problem, some of the stuff that I just talked about. And, there might be a case, a small use case, that a customer has where you could write it, and it's not going to change, and you could be all right. So I won't say never go through that door, but be careful about going through that door. The Sitecore door, Sitecore Connect, I've talked about some of the issues you need to think about and be careful about when you're doing syncing operations between X-Connect and Salesforce. So I liked this image. We didn't make this image. Because it's like you can go through the Sitecore door, but there's some obstacles. There's some plants that you may need to move or you may need to get around. And this is our door. We have office hours. We're there, and our customers, we know all of our customers, and when they see something that they don't understand or they need some support, they call us or email us, and we hop on a WebEx, and we look at what it is. And so we're there. We're there. So I'll show you one final picture, which is a further sort of analogy, I guess, to the various product options that you have, and that is your customer wants a bicycle. Your customer wants you to provide a bicycle to them. And we believe that this is like, okay, I'm going to build a bicycle. Okay, maybe you're good, and you like bicycles, and you can give it a go. The the Sitecore Connect door, we feel like, is you've got, a bunch of bicycle parts, some wheels and handlebar and sprocket, and you need to assemble that into a bicycle. We believe that our door is a fully functional bicycle that you can get on from the day that you install it. And sometimes that is what your customer wants. They want to get on a bicycle and they want to just pedal off down the street and enjoy their day. That is the end of my commentary, but I'd love to have questions.
What is the license cost?
So, we license by instance. Basic license, $16,000 US. It includes all developer orgs, all sandboxes, and all servers in an instance. Okay, we recently installed for a company called VizRT, which is in Norway. They're a media company. To my surprise, they're running, you hear about the typical regional, we have an APAC and we have a Europe and all that. And they got that, and they're doing it with one instance. So there's one license. And then we have customers that are larger that have different, they're, you know what it's like out there, right? There are customers who have brands running in their own instance, and that would be another license. But that's pretty much the point of entry, and a lot of people are able to work at that level. It includes some of the stuff I've talked about and didn't talk about. We have some modules, like one called S4S LB, pulls Salesforce campaigns out and imports them into List Manager. That's just a free add-on. It doesn't work if you don't have S4S, but if you have S4S, it's free. So, does that answer your question? Yep. No, that's a perpetual license. You own it, okay? It will never expire. The thing that we find is we have not a single customer who runs without maintenance, right? So we charge 20% maintenance per annum after that point. You can go, so you can say, right, we don't want maintenance, and we say, fine, your license will still work. But the thing about Sitecore and the thing about Salesforce is they are changing all the time, both of them, right? So Sitecore, you know the changes. Salesforce, the API changes. So we're on API 45 now, and we were on API 18 when we started. And so, customers need that. They need that support. And so, they're likely to keep the maintenance. But we do have customers running older versions of Sitecore. Absolutely. They have no interest in upgrading. So we actually, we're looking forward, and we're also looking at keeping all the folks who we have happy. And, we continue to roll out new features across the line.
So the maintenance that you talked about, that includes all upgrades if we have an upgrade on Sitecore and Salesforce, like you just mentioned?
That's correct. So maintenance allows you to come to our download site, log in, and download the latest version of the product.
Version. Okay.
Yep, it also includes support. So, we say for the basic level of maintenance, we have a level of maintenance that is basically 365, 24/7 maintenance. Most people don't do that. They find that they don't need it. We find actually the support stuff is really heavy when they're implementing, and then it tailors off. And we get, the horizontal integration folks, we've been working with for 6 years on United Health. And we may have an issue come up once or twice a year, some questions go back and forth. That's pretty much how it goes, unless they're doing a major upgrade or something like that. And so we just take calls, and if it's something we can't sort out, we like to see what's going on. It's the classic, can you send me a debug log? That's the first thing you ask for because it's all in there. We log extensively what we're doing when we're talking to Salesforce so you can see what's going on. But then we'll hop into WebEx and see for ourselves. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I've made it by 1 minute. Is that it? Okay. Thank you, guys.